Hi, I'm Rachel, and this is my AM reading video for Monday, September 19th, 2022, which as usual is going up a little bit later, but I wanted to chime in now and kind of keep the wheels going on this AM reading collection of videos. Anyway, I'm not all the way here. I have talked in previous videos that my cat Missy was in hospice care. She was dealing with an aggressive terminal cancer, and her condition severely worsened over the weekend, and on Monday I decided to end her life and to opt for the euthanasia program that my hospice program provided. So it's been quite a day, really. I guess in a strange way it was a good day. Missy got to have a really good day for where she was in her life at that point. Before the euthanasia appointment in the evening, you know, she got to sit in the sun and eat good food, and we even had some, you know, moments together, the two of us, I thought, where she was lucid and reaching out to me. Anyway, so yeah, it's a delicate time for me. I actually do think I'll be cobbling together a video, because she's been in some of my BookTube videos, so I can take out some clips and make like a memorial to her that way. But anyway, yeah, that's where I am, and at the moment I guess I'm still making videos, although I guess I'm electing in my head that I can opt out, I suppose, if I need to, but for now I think I'll just I talk sometimes in you know, these videos about keeping things short and sweet, and then I ramble on, but when it comes to these books, I don't actually think I'm going to ramble this time. I just kind of want to, you know, check this off, I suppose, and keep things going here, and just give some brief thoughts about what I have been reading this past week, starting as usual with the latest story in this Dorothy Parker collection of short stories. I read one short story per am reading video, and the one I read this week was called The Banquet of Crow, which she wrote and published in 1957, which was about a middle-aged woman whose husband left her, and she was like going through friends groups trying to like find the person who was going to tell her what she wanted to hear about the situation, and then she ultimately lands with a female therapist, although it seems like the bona fides of this woman are questionable, and the woman basically is I guess feeding into everything that this Mrs. Allen protagonist wants to hear about how her husband is, you know, just going through a thing and is being ridiculous, and then at one point ultimately the husband comes back to pick something up, and she and the therapist talk about like, oh, I'm going to make him eat crow basically for leaving me, and of course it doesn't turn out the way Mrs. Allen quite expected, but you know, this therapist helps her sort of recontextualize things in their own way. So yeah, and new sort of social commentary about the situations between men and women and women and women. Yep. Then I finished The Sound of One Hand Clapping by Richard Flannagan, which I definitely enjoyed more than I feared I would. This was in two TBR games I played several months ago. I read page 112 and was kind of about it, and that page was actually kind of weird for the story. And then I picked it again for another TBR game last quarter, the BookTube spin. And yeah, I liked it better than I thought. Obviously the author is talented. He's writing this literary fiction about a father-daughter relationship in two timelines in the mid-century and the 1980s, and they are Slovenian refugees that came to Australia and specifically Tasmania after World War II, and the mother and the family walked out on them abruptly in 1954 when the girl was quite young, and she was raised in part by her abusive father, although, you know, it's not that simple. He also is loving, and they ultimately try to rekindle a relationship in the 80s when Sonia, the daughter, comes back and she herself is pregnant. So they're going through, you know, these rites of passage, as it were, about what it means to be an immigrant in this culture, and what it means to deal with trauma, not only of the mother walking out, but the fact that both the mother and the father witnessed and were victim to atrocities committed by the Nazis in Slovenia, and then, you know, the trauma of Sonia and what she had to deal with growing up in a not so healthy environment. And then there's a lot of beautiful language too about the environs and so forth. Although, I mean, I guess as I was reading this, I don't feel like I was entirely taking everything in part because of you know, what was happening with Missy. But you know, I could tell that, you know, there's a lot of I think strength to the story and the characterization, and, you know, talking about these themes the way he did. And in fact, I researched and saw that Flannagan went on to not only write this book, but also direct a film adaptation of the book, which, as far as I can tell, I can't find it, you know, easily available in the US, but it was a film that was released in Australia and Germany, and there is a trailer on YouTube I could link down below. On audio, I'm listening to The Orchard by Yochi Brandis. She is an Israeli author who writes about biblical themes. And this book, admittedly, I'm really enjoying. I'm kind of excited about. It's really invigorating me about my fantasy project, which is very inspired by this period in Jewish history about sort of the clash between Temple and Rabbinic Judaism, this book taking place in the 1st century CE, when, you know, those things were very much in flux in Jewish history, and Brandis really gives voice and makes characters for a lot of the Talmudic rabbis of the age. And in fact, The Orchard refers to a Talmudic story about some of the most famous sages having a spiritual experience, and only one of them kind of coming out of it unscathed. I actually, earlier this year, for Maybe Midrash, actually not this year, last year I think, read a book called The Orchard, which was sort of a modern retelling of that story of Pardes, which took modern Orthodox young men in a high school, a religious high school, and kind of vaguely affixed them to these sages, and they went through a similar experience and kind of had a similar outcome. But so that was fun too. But this is much more or more specific to that actual source material, and I'm very impressed by the richness of the world building, and I guess I also just feel a special affinity for this you know, particular setting and writing, so I am looking forward to hopefully talking about this book in more detail later this month, if I'm feeling up to it, and if I also read another book by Yochi Brandis, which I'm technically intending to. Although, again, I'm kind of, you know, giving myself a little leeway with books and reading, and my TBR for the month, which, you know, I guess I'm telling myself if I need to back off a little bit, that's okay. Like even with this next book, which is White Elephant by Julie Langsdorf, which I meant to start by today, but I ended up not doing because of spending my last day with Missy, basically. But this is my page 112 tag pick for this month, which I picked in my last video, which I'll link down below. I believe this is supposed to be about suburban relationships and malaise in Washington, D.C., and hopefully, as I discussed in that video, can kind of provide some escapism from everything that's going on, and it's been blurbed by Meg Wolitzer, who is one of my favorite authors, so maybe this would be a book that would be, you know, nice to read in a cathartic way, but I don't have to, you know, give myself any absolutes about it, but I guess I'll be checking in, I might be checking in next week about what comes up with this. There is one book, and only one more book this month, that I absolutely do have to read, which is Chasing Me to My Grave, an artist's memoir of the Jim Crow South by Winfred Rembert. as told by Aaron I. Kelly, and I have to read this because I'm not just reading it for myself, I'm reading it for the BookTube prize. But this is as it says, it's a memoir of an artist, and in fact the book itself has some of his pictures inside, and I'm reading it, as I said, for the BookTube prize, which the ballot is due at the end of the month. The BookTube prize was started by Robert at Barter Hordes, wherein we judge the best in literary fiction, translated fiction, and nonfiction published in the U.S. The year before this one. And we are in the finals round after several rounds in 2022. I am reading the nonfiction ballot for the finals, and I did make a TBR sort of video before I started reading any of the books on my ballot, or actually I'd already read one for the quarterfinals, but the others I hadn't read yet, so I gave my thoughts, just pre-reading thoughts, if you want to know more about where I stood in the beginning, and also I'll link down to the BookTube prize. I feel like my words are rambling off, so I guess I'll end it there. So yeah, that about covers it for me now. I do think, regardless, I seem to ramble, although I feel like my rambling was fairly different in this video than some others, where I've talked ad nauseum about the fact that, for the most part, I'm giving myself leeway to step out of BookTube and even reading if I need to. But if I do stick around, which, you know, I very well might, and it might even be cathartic for me, expect to see me back on this channel in the next couple of days, because I'm going to return to the Would You Read It challenge, which is a BookTube tag I've co-opted. And speaking of the BookTube prize, I'm going back way to the beginning, to 2019, to the Octafinals list, the first long list, and reading through books on those ballots, or reading the first couple paragraphs of the books on those ballots and then discussing them with you. So stay tuned for that. I always have a bit of fun with that, and I think you know, it's fun for those of us in the BookTube prize community as well. Yeah, it's just weird to talk right now. I feel like I'm saying things that are usually true for me and might remain true for me in the interim, or might not. I mean, I'm sure that I will return to my usual book-loving and book-seeking ways in entirety and in full, I suppose, once I, you know, get through this next process here. But yeah, that's where I am now. Thanks for listening, and thanks so much for watching, and I will see you next time.